Taman walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council building. His black suit felt strange on this alien world, but he kept his face calm. As Earth's first ambassador to the galaxy, he had to make a good impression. The other species had been friendly enough in their messages. What could go wrong? The moment he stepped into the main hall, every conversation stopped. Hundreds of alien beings turned to look at him. Their faces showed something he did not expect. Fear. A tall blue creature with 4 arms dropped the glass it was holding. The liquid splashed across the floor, but no one moved to clean it. A group of insect-like beings backed away from him, their wings buzzing with panic. Even the massive rock people, who looked like living mountains, seemed to shrink back. "Is that really a human?" whispered one alien to another. "I heard they can survive in space without suits for hours," said a third voice. "My cousin saw one tear apart a battle. Mech with bare hands," added someone else. Taman frowned. These stories were clearly wrong. Humans were tough, sure, but they were not superhuman. He walked toward the center of the hall where a small stage waited. The crowd parted before him like water, creating a wide path. No one wanted to get too close. Ambassador Veltar from the Vorthak Empire waited on the stage. His purple skin had turned almost white, and his 3 eyes kept darting around nervously. When Taman climbed the steps, Veltar actually took a step backward. "Welcome, Ambassador Taman," Veltar said, his voice shaking slightly. "We are honored to have a human among us." "Thank you," Taman replied with a smile. "Earth is excited to join the galactic community. We hope to learn much from all of you." The crowd murmured at his words. Some aliens exchanged worried looks. A few moved closer to the exits. "Yes, well," Veltar continued, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Perhaps we should discuss the safety protocols first." "Safety protocols?" Taman asked, confused. "For the other species," Veltar explained quickly. "We understand that humans have certain capabilities that might be dangerous to more fragile beings." Taman's confusion grew. "I think there might be some mistake. Humans are not dangerous to anyone here. We are diplomats, not warriors." This seemed to make things worse. The crowd began whispering more loudly. "He says they are not warriors," one alien hissed. "That makes them even more scary," replied another. "If their diplomats are this strong, what are their soldiers like?" Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Commander Jiwan sat in the captain's chair of the exploration ship New Sol. Her crew of 50 humans was small by Earth standards, but their ship was fast and well-armed. They had been exploring this sector for 3 months, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of life. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Dal from the communications station, "we are getting multiple distress signals." G1 turned toward him. "How many?" "3 different systems, Captain, all within 50 light years of each other." "What kind of distress?" Dal checked his screens again. "Pirate attacks, Captain. Large fleets. The locals are asking for any help they can get." G1 thought for a moment. 3 different attacks meant the pirates were well organized. Most species would send multiple ships to handle this kind of threat, but Earth's exploration ships were built for anything. "Set course for the nearest system," she ordered. "Full speed." "Captain," said Chief Engineer So Young from her station, "the distress signals mention fleets of over 100 ships each. We might want to call for backup." Jiwan smiled. 50 humans should be enough." The crew nodded. They had heard the stories too, but from the other side. Stories of alien pirates who ran away at the first sight of human ships. Stories of entire criminal organizations that avoided human space because it was too dangerous. Earth's government had not told them why aliens seemed so afraid of humans. They just knew it worked. Back on the Council world, Taman was learning more about the galaxy's view of his species. During his first official meeting, he sat across from representatives of the 3 major powers, the Vorthak Empire, the Zilani Federation, and the Krex Dominion. "Tell us," said Counselor High Rim from the Zilani, her crystal body glowing nervously, "how many of your kind are enhanced?" "Enhanced?" Taman asked. "Modified, changed, made stronger than normal," explained Commander Binho from the Krex. His scales were standing up, which Taman had learned meant fear or stress. "No humans are enhanced," Taman said honestly. "We are all natural." The 3 aliens looked at each other in horror. "All of them?" whispered High Rim. "Every single human is capable of the documented feats?" asked Binho. "What documented feats?" Taman was getting frustrated. No one would give him straight answers. Veltar pulled out a datapad and began reading. Incident 1. Human cargo ship attacked by pirate fleet. Single human engineer, identified as Yu Jin, held off boarding parties for 6 hours while repairing the ship's weapons, suffered wounds that should have been fatal, continued fighting until rescue arrived. He turned to another page. Incident 2. Human survey team crashed on hostile world. Survived for 3 months in environment that kills most species within days. When rescue ship arrived, humans had built a small city and tamed local predators. Another page. Incident 3. Human merchant Captain Rowoon challenged to single combat by Gortak champion. Gortak are 3 times human size and strength. Human won in under 5 minutes. Taman listened with growing amazement. These stories sounded impossible, but the aliens clearly believed them. And these are just the small incidents, Veltar continued. The major ones are classified, but they involve things like entire pirate fleets disappearing after attacking human colonies, and exploration teams that somehow survived in places where reality itself was unstable. I can assure you, Taman said carefully, that humans are not some kind of super soldiers. We are just very persistent. The word persistent seemed to terrify the aliens even more than enhanced had. As the meeting ended, Taman walked back to his quarters with his head spinning. According to the Galactic database, humans had developed a reputation as beings who simply could not be stopped. They did not surrender. They did not give up. They adapted to anything and found ways to win fights they should have lost. He sent a message back to Earth asking for clarification. The reply came quickly from Director Yunji of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. Tell them nothing untrue. Let them think what they want to think. Sometimes reputation is the best weapon. Taman stared at the message. Earth's government knew about the aliens' fear and was using it as a tool. But what were they preparing for that required such a reputation? Outside his window, the alien city sparkled under strange stars. In the distance, he could see ships arriving and departing. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but also full of dangers that Earth apparently knew about. For the first time since arriving, Taman felt afraid. Not of the aliens, but of what his own species might be hiding from him. Dr. Hanul had been studying the strange artifact for 3 weeks. It sat on her lab table like a piece of living metal, covered in symbols that seemed to move when she was not looking directly at them. The predecessor ruins where they found it had been dead for millions of years. But this artifact still hummed with power. Computer, run translation protocol 17, she said, adjusting her glasses. The lab's artificial intelligence began working through the alien symbols. Hanul had tried 16 other protocols already. Each one had failed to make sense of the writing. But this time something was different. The symbols began to glow and text appeared on her screen. Warning to those who come after us, she read aloud. We have failed to stop them. The devourers come from the space between spaces. They are hunger given form, hatred given purpose. We have built a prison, but it will not hold forever. Hanul felt a chill run down her spine. She kept reading. They do not kill. They unmake. They do not conquer. They erase. When they are done, it will be as if we never existed at all. The prison weakens. We estimate 10 million of your years before complete failure. Prepare. Fight. Die well. The artifact suddenly went dark. Hanul tried to restart the translation, but the symbols had changed. Now they just looked like random scratches on metal. Whatever power had let her read them was gone. She immediately sent the translation to Earth's government and to the Galactic Council. Within hours, her quiet research lab was filled with officials from every major species. They all wore the same expression of barely controlled panic. Are you certain this translation is correct? Asked Admiral Hyunwoo, who had arrived on the fastest ship Earth could send. As certain as I can be, Hanul replied. The artifact has gone dead since then. I cannot get it to translate anything else. 10 million years, said Ambassador Taman, who had come from the council chambers. The message is 10 million years old. That means the prison is already failing, finished Counselor Highrim. Her crystal body was dim with fear. If their calculations were correct, we have very little time left. Admiral Hyunwoo turned to his aide. Send a message to Earth. Tell them to prepare the deep space monitoring stations. If something is coming, we need to know about it first. Captain Minho received the orders while his ship was exploring the galaxy's outer rim. His crew was mixed, 20 humans and 30 aliens from various species. They had been working together for 2 years. mapping unknown regions and investigating strange phenomena. "Captain," called Lieutenant Ja-hyun from the sensor station, "I am reading some very unusual energy patterns ahead." "What kind of patterns?" Min-ho asked, moving to look at the displays. "I have never seen anything like them, sir. They seem to be coming from empty space, but the readings suggest something massive is there." Min-ho studied the data. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. They pulsed with a rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat, but wrong somehow. "Too fast, too eager, take us closer," he ordered. "But keep the shields up and weapons ready." As they approached the source, the alien crew members began showing signs of distress. The Zilani engineer, Krital, started shaking uncontrollably. The Vorthak navigator, Morden, began making low whimpering sounds. Even the normally steady Krek soldiers looked nervous. "Captain," said Dr. Subin, the ship's psychologist, "the alien crew members are experiencing severe stress reactions. I recommend we withdraw." "Negative," Min-ho replied. "We need to know what we are dealing with." The human crew, by contrast, seemed unaffected. Chief Engineer So-young monitored the ship's systems with her usual calm efficiency. Weapons Officer Kite kept his hand steady on the controls. They felt the wrongness in the energy patterns, but it did not break their minds like it was doing to the aliens. "There," pointed Ja-hyun, "on the main screen." Space itself seemed to be torn. A hole in reality showed something that should not exist. Through the gap, they could see a place of absolute darkness where things that might have once been stars hung like broken ornaments. The darkness was not empty. It was full of movement, of shapes that hurt to look at directly. "My God," whispered Min-ho. "What is that place?" As if in answer to his question, something began pushing through the tear. It was not a ship or a creature in any sense they understood. It was a piece of wrongness given form, a thing that existed only to deny the existence of everything else. The moment it emerged, Krital collapsed, screaming. Morden's 3 eyes rolled back in his head and he fell unconscious. The Krek soldiers dropped their weapons and backed away from the screens, their scales turning white with terror. "All alien crew to the medical bay," Min-ho ordered. "Now," but the humans stayed at their posts. They watched as the entity that had come through the tear began to change the space around it. Stars went out one by one, not destroyed, but simply ceasing to have ever existed. Planets vanished from the records as if they had never been born. "Captain," So-young reported, her voice steady despite what they were seeing. "The thing is expanding the tear. More entities are trying to come through." Min-ho activated the ship's emergency communication system. "This is Captain Min-ho to all Council forces. We have found the source of the energy readings. The prison the predecessors built is failing. Repeat, the prison is failing. The devourers are breaking through." He paused, watching as a second entity pushed through the tear. Where the first one had been wrong, this one was actively hostile. It turned toward their ship, and Min-ho felt its attention like ice water in his veins. "All ships are to maintain at least 1 light-year distance from our position," he continued. "Do not approach. Do not engage. The alien crew members cannot handle exposure to these entities. Only humans seem to be able to function near them." The second entity began moving toward their ship. It did not travel through space so much as it edited space to put itself closer to them. Each jump brought it nearer, and each jump erased a piece of the universe behind it. "Captain," Kite said quietly, "should I prepare weapons?" Min-ho watched the entity approach. Their weapons were powerful, designed to destroy battle cruisers and space stations. But he had the feeling that shooting at this thing would be like trying to kill a nightmare with a flashlight. "No," he said finally. "We retreat. But slowly. We need to learn everything we can about these things." As their ship backed away, more tiers began opening across the sector. Through each one, more entities pushed through from the dark place beyond reality. Some were small, no bigger than shuttles. Others were vast, the size of moons or planets. All of them shared the same terrible purpose: to make everything that existed stop existing. The retreat took 12 hours. During that time, they watched 3 star systems simply disappear. Not destroyed, not consumed, but edited out of reality as if they had never been there at all. The computers tried to maintain records of what had been lost, but even the data began to fade as the universe adjusted to the changes. When they finally reached a safe distance, Min-ho sent a full report to Earth and the Council. The message was simple but terrifying. The devourers are real. They are breaking free. Standard weapons and defenses are useless against them. Recommend immediate evacuation of all border systems. Back in the galactic capital, the council chambers were in chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species argued and panicked in equal measure. Some demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to surrender before the entities reached their worlds. Ambassador Taemin sat quietly in the human section, listening to the debates. His species had a reputation for being impossible to stop, but even humans could not fight something that erased their existence, or could they? His communicator buzzed with a message from Earth. It was short and signed by someone called General Eunji. "Do not worry. We have been preparing for this day longer than you know. The galaxy will be protected." Taemin stared at the message. How could Earth have been preparing for something they had just learned about? Unless they had known all along. Unless humanity's reputation for surviving impossible situations was not an accident, but the result of deliberate preparation for threats like this. For the second time since arriving in the galaxy, Taemin felt afraid of his own species. But this time he was also grateful for that fear. Admiral Hyunwoo stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The great chamber was packed with representatives from every known species, but the mood was far from the usual diplomatic politeness. Fear filled the air like smoke, thick and choking. "The situation is worse than we first thought," Hyunwoo began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Our deep space monitors show 17 new tiers opening every day. The Devourers are not just escaping, they are being released in organized waves." A Vorthak counselor raised one of his 4 hands. "Admiral, our fleets are already retreating from the outer systems. We cannot fight enemies that erase our existence. What do you suggest we do?" "Fight anyway," Hyunwoo replied simply. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. A Zilani representative stood up, her crystal body flashing with agitation. "Admiral, with respect, humans may be tough, but even you cannot survive being unmade from reality itself." "We will see," Hyunwoo said calmly. Ambassador Taemin watched from the human section as panic spread through the other delegations. Some species were already discussing evacuation plans. Others talked about hiding in the galaxy's core, hoping the Devourers would be satisfied with the outer worlds. None of them talked about actually fighting. The Krex Dominion's military commander, General Morgan, stood up. His scales were pale with stress. "The Krex have decided to attempt negotiation. Surely these entities can be reasoned with. All intelligent life seeks something. We will find what they want and give it to them." Hyunwoo's expression did not change. "General, they want everything to stop existing. Including you. Including your offer. Including the concept of negotiation itself." "We must try," Morgan insisted. "The Krex will send diplomatic vessels to make contact." 3 days later, the diplomatic fleet launched. 5 of the Krex Dominion's finest ships, filled with their best negotiators and loaded with tribute from dozens of worlds. They carried art, technology, rare metals, and cultural treasures. If the Devourers wanted anything the galaxy could offer, they would find it in those ships. Captain Minho watched the fleet approach the nearest tear from a safe distance. His ship had been assigned to observe and report what happened. He hoped the Krex were right, that somehow diplomacy could solve this crisis. But he had seen the entities up close, and he did not think they understood concepts like negotiation. "The Krex ships are broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Lieutenant Ja Hyun. "They are offering tribute, technology, even entire systems in exchange for peace." "Any response?" Minho asked. "Nothing yet, Captain." The 5 Krex ships took positions around the tear in space. Their messages played on repeat, broadcast in every known language and several mathematical concepts that should be universal. They offered everything they had and more. Then something came through the tear. It was not one of the entities they had seen before. This one was different, more complex. Where the others had been simple wrongness, this one seemed to understand what it was seeing. It paused near the Krex ships, and for a moment, Minho dared to hope. The entity reached out with something that might have been a hand or a tentacle or a concept given form. It touched the lead Krex ship gently, almost carefully. The ship's hull began to change, twisting into shapes that hurt to look at. The screaming started immediately. "Captain," Ja-hyun said, his voice tight with horror, "the ship is still broadcasting. The crew is—" "They are still alive in there. The entity was not killing the Krex, it was transforming them, changing them into something else while keeping them conscious." The ship began to broadcast across all frequencies, but instead of diplomatic messages, It now sent out the agonized screams of its crew. One by one, the other 4 ships suffered the same fate. Their hulls twisted into impossible sculptures of pain. Their crews transformed into living monuments to suffering. When it was done, the entity pushed all 5 ships back through the tear. "Captain," So Young reported from engineering, "the ships are still broadcasting. The signal is being amplified somehow. Every communication system in the galaxy is receiving it." The screaming continued for hours. Not random cries of pain, but organized, purposeful sounds that carried a clear message. This is what happens to those who try to negotiate. This is what happens to those who think they can reason with us. We do not want your treasures. We want you to not exist, and we want you to suffer before you reach that state. Back in the council chambers, the mood had shifted from fear to despair. The recorded broadcasts of the Krek's diplomatic fleet played on screens throughout the chamber. Some representatives had left, unable to handle the sounds. Others sat in stunned silence. "They understand us," whispered Counselor Hiram. "They know what we are trying to do, and they are telling us it will not work." Ambassador Taman received a priority message on his personal communicator. It was from Colonel Bin on Earth. "Diplomatic phase is over. Time for the real work to begin. Prepare the council for what comes next." Taman stood up in the human section. "If I may address the council?" The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him. "Earth's government has asked me to share our analysis of the situation," he began. "Our experts have studied the Devourer's behavior and reached a conclusion." He paused, looking around the chamber at the fearful faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings. "This is not a war," he continued. "Wars have objectives. Wars can be won or lost. Wars involve enemies who want something you have. This is pest control. From their perspective, we are insects that have gotten too numerous. They are here to reduce our population to 0. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several representatives shouted that humans were being too pessimistic, that there had to be a solution that did not involve fighting cosmic horrors. Taman waited for the noise to die down. "However," he said, "there is one thing the Devourers may not have considered." "What is that?" asked General Morgan, who looked broken after losing his diplomatic fleet. "Insects can bite." Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding throughout the council building. Emergency broadcasts filled the screens. 3 more sectors had gone silent, their stars simply ceasing to exist. The Devourers were not waiting for the galaxy to organize a response. They were advancing steadily toward the core worlds. General Yunji's image appeared on the main communication screen. She was in what looked like a military command center, surrounded by officers and displays showing fleet movements. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," she began, "Earth's fleets are moving to engage the enemy. We will buy you time to evacuate the civilian populations, but I need to be clear about something." She paused, and her expression grew hard. "We are not here to save the galaxy. We are here to save what can be saved and kill what cannot be reasoned with. Some of you will not like our methods. Some of you will be horrified by what we are capable of. But remember, we are doing this for you." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Admiral Hyunwoo stepped forward. "All human personnel in the galaxy have been recalled to active duty. Our ships are moving to positions around the remaining tiers. We will establish a defensive line and hold it as long as possible." "How many ships?" asked Morgan. "All of them." As the human fleet deployed, the other species began to understand why the galaxy had feared humans even before the Devourers arrived. Earth's exploration ships were armed better than most species' military vessels. Their cargo ships carried weapons that could destroy battle cruisers. Their civilian population included millions of trained soldiers. Ambassador Taemin watched the deployment reports with growing amazement. He had thought he knew his own species, but Earth had been hiding an entire war machine in plain sight. Ships that had claimed to be simple transports were revealing hidden weapons. Colonies that had seemed like peaceful farming communities were launching fighter squadrons. "How long have we been preparing for this?" he asked Admiral Hyunwoo during a brief break in the emergency sessions. "Since we first learned we were not alone in the universe," Hyunwoo replied. "Earth's government decided that any species capable of crossing interstellar space would also be capable of erasing us. We have been building defenses against cosmic threats since before we met our first alien. But the other species do not know about any of this. They knew we were dangerous. They just thought it was natural human behavior." They never imagined it was carefully planned preparation for exactly this scenario. On the screens around them, status updates showed human fleets taking positions throughout the galaxy. They were not running from the devourers. They were moving toward them, dark and purposeful as hunting wolves. For the first time since the crisis began, Taemin felt something other than fear. He felt hope, terrible and bloody, but hope nonetheless. Director Yu Jin stood before the emergency council session, her expression grave as she prepared to reveal Earth's greatest secret. The assembled alien representatives had spent weeks watching human fleets take positions throughout the galaxy, but they still did not understand what they were truly seeing. For 50 years, Yujin began, Earth has been preparing for this exact situation. Every colony we established, every exploration mission we launched, every friendly diplomatic contact we made, all of it was designed around one central question. What do we do when something comes to end all existence? Ambassador Taemin felt his stomach drop. Everything he thought he knew about his species' expansion into space had been a lie. You see, Yujin continued, humans learned early in our history that the universe is hostile to life. We have faced extinction dozens of times on our own world. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, plagues. We learned that survival requires preparation for threats you cannot imagine. She activated a holographic display showing human space. What the aliens had thought were peaceful colonies suddenly revealed their true purpose. Mining worlds were weapons factories. Agricultural planets were training grounds for soldiers. Research stations were developing technologies that violated several galactic treaties. When we met the galaxy, we realized the threats here would be far worse than anything Earth had faced. So we prepared accordingly. Counselor Hirim's crystal body dimmed with shock. You have been lying to us for decades. We have been protecting you for decades, Yujin corrected. Every human you met, every ship you saw, every colony you visited, they were all part of a defensive network designed to keep cosmic horrors away from civilized space. She changed the display to show personnel records. Master Sergeant Dal, whom you know as a simple cargo ship captain, is actually a graduate of Earth's most advanced combat training program. Dr. Subin, who works as a civilian researcher, is a specialist in fighting enemies that attack through mental contact. Captain Boram, who runs a quiet trading post, is trained to hunt things that most species cannot even perceive. Admiral Hyunwoo stepped forward. Every human in space has received training for fighting cosmic threats. We call them our supreme warriors. But they are more than soldiers. They are humans who have been enhanced to fight enemies that should not exist. The word enhanced sent a wave of terror through the alien representatives. If normal humans were already frightening, what were enhanced humans capable of? Enhanced how? Asked General Morgan, his voice barely a whisper. Mentally, physically, and spiritually, Hyunwoo replied. They can function in environments that break other minds. They can survive injuries that would kill most beings. They can perceive and interact with entities that exist outside normal reality. On the screens around the chamber, reports began coming in from the front lines. Human ships were making contact with devourer entities, and the results were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Lieutenant Ro Woon led a boarding party onto a ship that had been taken by the devourers. The vessel had been transformed into something that hurt to look at. Its corridors twisted into impossible shapes that made navigation mentally painful. The alien crew members who had tried similar boarding actions had been driven insane within minutes, but Ro Woon and his team moved through the ship with calm efficiency. They had trained for this. Their minds had been conditioned to function in spaces where reality was broken. Their bodies had been modified to survive in environments where physics worked differently. Target located, Ro Woon reported over the communication system. Beginning extraction. What he meant by extraction became clear as the entity that controlled the ship simply stopped existing. Not killed, not destroyed, but removed from reality as cleanly as if it had never been there. The ship's hull began returning to normal, its twisted corridors straightening out. How did he do that? Whispered Ambassador Taemin. Supreme warriors are trained to fight fire with fire, Yujin explained. The devourers unmake things from reality. Our warriors have learned to unmake the devourers. More reports flooded in. Captain Boram was leading hunting parties that tracked devourer entities through folded space. Instead of running from the cosmic horrors, she pursued them, using tactics developed from humanity's darkest historical periods. Her teams did not just fight the entities, they terrorized them. Master Sergeant Dal had taken a squad into one of the tiers between realities. Inside the dark space beyond, he was fighting the Devourers on their home territory. His reports were brief and professional. Zone 7 cleared. Moving to Zone 8. Resistance is lighter than expected. The galaxy watched in horror and amazement as humanity's true nature revealed itself. These were not the peaceful explorers they had pretended to be. These were predators who had been hiding among sheep, waiting for wolves to appear. "My God," breathed Counselor Hiram. "You are more frightening than the things you are fighting." "Yes," Eugen agreed without hesitation. "That is the point. We became monsters so you could remain innocent." But the cost was becoming clear. The Supreme Warriors were not coming back unchanged from their battles. Those who survived emerged as something barely human. The procedures that let them fight cosmic horrors also cut them off from normal human emotion and connection. Dr. Subin's final transmission came from deep within Devourer space. Mission accomplished. Primary hive destroyed. Do not attempt retrieval. We are no longer compatible with normal reality. Her team had succeeded in eliminating a major Devourer stronghold, but the process had changed them into something that could not return to human space. They had become like the enemies they fought, necessary but too dangerous to be around normal people. The alien representatives watched these reports with growing understanding. Humanity had not just prepared weapons to fight cosmic threats. They had prepared to sacrifice their own people, to transform them into monsters that could protect everyone else. "How many of your people are willing to undergo this transformation?" asked General Morgan. "All of them," Admiral Hyunwoo replied simply. It was true. As the crisis deepened, volunteers flooded Earth's military centers. Farmers, teachers, artists, engineers. Ordinary humans who stepped forward to become something inhuman, so their families and friends could survive. They knew they would not come back the same. Many knew they would not come back at all. Captain Minho received orders to lead his ship into the heart of a Devourer fleet. His mixed crew of humans and aliens had been working together for years, but now the aliens had to be left behind. Only the humans could survive what came next. "I am sorry," he told his alien friends as they prepared to transfer to a safer ship. "I wish we could have told you the truth sooner." Krital, the Zilani engineer who had served with him for 2 years, touched his shoulder with one crystalline hand. "We understand now why the galaxy feared humans, but we also understand why we needed you to fear." As the human crew prepared for their mission, they underwent the final enhancement procedures. Their minds were adjusted to function in spaces where sanity was a luxury. Their bodies were modified to survive in environments that violated natural law. Their souls were hardened against influences that could corrupt reality itself. When the process was complete, they were still recognizably human. But something essential had changed. They could look at cosmic horrors without flinching. They could walk through broken reality without losing their minds. They could fight entities that existed to end existence itself. But they could no longer fully connect with normal humans. The procedures that made them capable of fighting the Devourers also cut them off from the very people they were trying to protect. Captain Minho looked at his transformed crew and felt a deep sadness. They had gained the power to save the galaxy, but they had lost their humanity in the process. They were Earth's supreme warriors now, and they would fight until nothing remained of either side. Ambassador Taemin watched the transformation reports with tears in his eyes. He finally understood why Earth had hidden its true nature. They had not been preparing for war. They had been preparing for sacrifice. Every human in space was ready to give up their humanity to protect the innocent. "Will any of them come back?" he asked Director Eugen. She was quiet for a long moment. "Some might survive. But they will not be the people who left. The galaxy will be safe, but it will be protected by monsters. Are monsters, but monsters nonetheless." The price of victory was becoming clear, and it was higher than anyone had imagined. Field Marshal Jahyun stood before the largest military display Earth had ever created. The holographic map showed the entire galaxy, with red zones marking Devourer activity and blue zones showing human forces. The red was spreading, but the blue was moving to meet it with deadly purpose. "Final assault begins in 6 hours, she announced to the assembled commanders. "All Supreme Warrior units are in position around the primary breach point. This is not a battle we can win through conventional means. We are going to have to break some very fundamental laws of reality. Supreme Commander Kite, leader of Earth's most enhanced soldiers, studied the tactical display. The breach point was a wound in space itself, a hole between dimensions that grew larger every hour. Through it, endless streams of devourers poured into normal reality, each one erasing pieces of the universe as they emerged. "Sir," said Specialist Haiwan, "our scouts report that the breach extends across multiple dimensions simultaneously. We cannot seal it from just one layer of reality." Kite nodded grimly. "Then we go into all of them at once. Teams 7 through 12 will enter parallel dimensions and begin sealing operations from the inside. The rest of us will hold the main breach point." The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. They were going to send human soldiers into dimensions where the devourers had already won, into realities where existence itself was being systematically deleted. The soldiers would have to fight through dead universes while somehow maintaining enough of themselves to complete their mission. "Sir," said Lieutenant Dal, "the probability calculations are not encouraging. Most teams will not survive the dimensional transitions, and those who do will be operating in environments that actively erase anything that tries to exist there." "Understood," Kite replied. "We go anyway." As the human fleets moved into final positions, the alien observers watched from the edges of the galaxy. They had been evacuated from the combat zones, their minds too fragile to handle what was about to happen. Only humans could function in the spaces where reality became negotiable. Ambassador Tae Min stood in the observation deck of the Council's flagship, watching the human armada prepare for its final assault. The ships looked wrong somehow, their hulls modified with technology that seemed to bend space around them. The crews had undergone so many enhancement procedures that they barely registered as human on the sensors. "They are magnificent and terrible," whispered Counselor High Rim beside him. "I understand now why your species frightened us even before we knew about the Devourers." Captain Minho led the first wave into the breach zone. His ship, the New Soul, had been transformed into something that could survive in broken reality. The crew wore armor that protected them from more than physical damage. It shielded their very existence from entities that could erase them with a thought. "Contact, with primary targets," he reported as his ship entered the distorted space around the breach. Beginning engagement. What followed could not really be called a battle. Battles involved opponents who shared the same reality. This was something more fundamental, a contest between existence and non-existence, between life and the forces that sought to end all life forever. The Devourers were not prepared for enemies who could fight them on their own terms. For eons, they had faced creatures bound by the laws of physics, limited by their need to exist in a single dimension. But the Supreme Warriors had transcended those limitations. They could step between realities, exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and strike at enemies who thought themselves beyond physical reach. Specialist Haiwan and her team disappeared into a parallel dimension where the Devourers had already consumed everything. They found themselves in a universe of absolute emptiness where even the concept of space had been eaten away. But they had been trained for this. Their enhanced minds could function without reference points, and their modified bodies could exist in places where existence was forbidden. "Dimension 7 is clear," she reported across the dimensional communication link, moving to collapse the local breach points. One by one, the human teams sealed the tiers between realities. Each victory cost them something essential, parts of their humanity that could not survive in the spaces between worlds. They were becoming something else, something necessary but no longer entirely human. The final assault on the main breach point lasted 18 hours. Supreme Commander Kite led a charge directly into the heart of the wound in space, where the oldest and most powerful Devourers waited. These entities had been erasing universes since before the first stars formed, and they did not understand how mere mortals could threaten them. Kite's final transmission was brief. "We go where angels fear to tread, not because we are brave, but because someone has to. Remember us as monsters if you must, but remember that we were your monsters." Then the communication went silent. Dr. Subin monitored the dimensional sensors from the flagship, watching as reality twisted around the breach point. Space and time became fluid. Causality turned inside out, and the very concept of existence became negotiable. Through it all, the human life signs continued moving deeper into the impossible space where the Devourers made their home. "What are they doing in there?" asked Admiral Hyunwoo. "Winning," Subin replied simply. The breakthrough came suddenly. The energy readings from the breach point spiked to impossible levels, then dropped to 0. The tear in space began shrinking rapidly, and the streams of devourers stopped emerging. One by one, the entities that had already entered normal space simply ceased to exist. "Confirm status," Admiral Hyunwoo ordered. Subin checked her instruments multiple times before responding. "The breach is sealed. All dimensional tiers are closing. Devourer activity has stopped completely. Casualties?" Subin's voice was heavy with grief. 80% of the Supreme Warrior units. Most of the dimensional assault teams. All of the deep penetration forces. The victory celebration in the council chambers was muted by the terrible cost. Earth had saved the galaxy, but at the price of sacrificing most of its enhanced soldiers. Those who had survived were changed beyond recognition. Their minds and bodies adapted to environments that normal humans could not even imagine. Ambassador Taemin received the final casualty reports 3 days later. Names he recognized from peaceful diplomatic meetings were listed among the dead. Captain Minho, who had shown him around his first human ship. Lieutenant Rowoon, who had shared stories about Earth's strange weather. Specialist Haiwan, who had helped him understand human humor. All gone, transformed into something beyond human, then lost in the spaces between realities where they had made their final stand. "Was it worth it?" he asked Director Yu Jin during the memorial service. "Ask me in 1,000 years," she replied. "When the galaxy's children are still alive to play under alien suns, when civilizations we have never met get the chance to grow and flourish, when the universe continues to exist instead of being reduced to empty darkness. Ask me then if it was worth it." The surviving Supreme Warriors were given new assignments on the edges of human space, far from civilian populations. They had saved everything, but they could no longer be part of the world they had protected. Their enhanced minds could not adjust to peaceful life, and their modified bodies carried energies that were dangerous to normal humans. General Yunji established the Memorial Hall on Earth, where the names of every fallen Supreme Warrior were carved in black stone. She stood there often, looking at the thousands of names of humans who had given up their humanity to protect everyone else's. One day, a young alien diplomat visited the memorial. She was from a species that had not even existed when the Devourer crisis began, born in the years of peace that followed the victory. "General," she asked, "my people have heard the stories, but I must know, will humanity maintain such warriors now that the great threat is over?" General Yunji's smile was cold and knowing, the expression of someone who had seen the true nature of the universe and found it wanting. "Child," she said, "that was not the threat. That was just the universe's way of telling us we need to be ready for what comes next." The young diplomat looked confused. What could be worse than entities that erase existence itself? Yunji gestured toward the stars visible through the memorial's windows. "The universe is vast and old and full of things that should not exist. The Devourers were just the first test. There will be others, threats we cannot imagine, enemies we have not yet learned to fear, challenges that will require us to become even more monstrous than we already are." She turned back to the wall of names. These humans died to save the galaxy. The next generation will live to protect it from whatever horror emerges from the deep spaces between the stars. We will be ready, because that is what humans do. We prepare for the worst possible scenario, then prepare for something even worse than that. The alien diplomat left the memorial with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. They were not just another species among many. They were the guardians, the ones who willingly became monsters so that innocence could survive. The price of their protection was living with the knowledge that your protectors were more frightening than anything they protected you from. In the depths of space, monitoring stations kept watch for new threats. Enhanced humans,